Sorry for the late start. We had a meeting with some of our dispensary folks prior to this. So I don't have a PowerPoint presentation today. I know you guys are all probably really disappointed about that. Just have a few things on the agenda, and we can maybe get out of here a little bit earlier than usual. As always, I'm happy to stay around and answer as many questions as I know the answers to. Our conditional use permits continue to continue to roll out. To date, Ms. Patterson has approved 20 CUPs. I believe she has 11 or 12 scheduled for this Thursday. There were not any CUP hearings last week because her and I and Zara and a few others were in Denver for a symposium on cannabis. So those CUPs should continue to roll out, hopefully a little bit faster. I'm trying to get the planning department to churn those out at a little bit higher rate, recognizing that we have some deadlines approaching that folks would like permits. Our goal with the BOPs, is to have them approved within 7 to 10 days of the CUP. The ones that have been approved, we have, I don't think issued one yet, but that's because they were not totally complete. And so hopefully if you have submitted a BOP, hopefully you've submitted a completed BOP, and as you get closer to your hearing date for your conditional use permit, it may be worth going back over what you submitted for your business operations permit to make sure that we have what is the most updated information possible. On 10/24, tomorrow, the council is going to be hearing an amendment to our manufacturing ordinance that will allow the use of ethanol per the approval of the fire marshal, who's sitting right there. Raise your hand. So if you want to do ethanol extraction and have questions around what his expectations might be, he is the person that you need to talk to. But my guess is that it's going to begin with something that's probably equipment that's UL certified, right? He's shaking his head. We're also adopting a tiered manufacturing process or types of permits. So, well, provided that the council does approve it, what they will hear is a recommendation for a type 1 manufacturing permit, and that would allow for extraction, packaging, and production. A type N permit, which is the production of an edible, and a type P, which is the packaging and labeling. Within that, we're also going to have 4 different tiers based on gross receipts, with the lowest being with gross receipts of $100,000 or less annually. We think that permit is going to be probably in the couple $1,000 range. The upper end is going to be $3 million or more in terms of gross receipts, and that permit will obviously cost a little bit more. But my hope and goal with that was to find lower barriers to entry for small manufacturers in order to encourage compliance. I believe that there are a number of manufacturers out there that are not doing $3 million a year in sales and that want to enter the market and want to do so legally. And so it's my goal with everything to do it in a manner that best comes close to meeting the industry where it's at. Testing's also tomorrow, right? So we're also removing the provided the council approves it, I have to qualify that. We're removing the conditional use permit requirement for testing facilities. So provided that it is in a properly zoned building, that the testing element will only require a business operations permit. So hopefully we'll get a number of testing facilities to move into Sacramento and call it home and make this whole supply chain actually work. On November 14th and November 28th. On November 14th, Law and Legislation Committee will be hearing this, and then 2 weeks later, the City Council will be hearing adult use, delivery-only dispensaries, non-storefront dispensaries, and distribution. The proposal for adult use would be to allow existing dispensaries the ability to deliver cannabis. For those of our 30 dispensaries that are in existence currently, they could apply for that that provision. Those delivery-only dispensaries that are approved could also then apply for adult use as well. The distribution permit is as proposed to be tiered. Our current distribution permit is very one-size-fits-all. Has a permit cost of $47,000, and I think was initially designed to be kind of like a Costco or Walmart of cannabis, if you will. What we're proposing is that it be broken down into two types. One, distribution as a standalone business. That permit price is dropped by half or more, and then distribution as a service or a function of a business. So if you're a cultivator, if you're a manufacturer, if you're a dispensary, you could apply for a distribution permit that is really intended to make the supply chain function. And that permit, my hope is that it's in the couple thousands of dollars, and really just intended to be, again, making that supply chain work. That would be, again, November 28th. Local authorization for state licenses. So if you hadn't heard, the state is going to be issuing temporary permits. They're going to be 120-day permits with 2 90-day extensions possible. During that time, they will conduct the investigation into the permit applicant. What they require is a letter from us saying that you have either applied for your conditional use permit, you've applied for your business operations permit, and that you are not operating, but going through our permit process and by all accounts complying with all local regulations. Or you have a valid local, state, or local permit. If you are operating, does present some challenges if you're operating illegally. So I would just kind of caution all of you around what you're doing and how you intend to apply, because it does present some challenges. If I'm supposed to be sending a letter off to Chief Ajax that says, yes, this person is compliant with all state and local regs, to my knowledge, when they're not. So, renew revised BOP fees. I don't remember that one. Come up here. Come up here. Come here. I don't remember it. This is our everyone.
Oh, the fees?
Yeah.
Okay, so November 7th, we're going before Budget and Audit Committee to present them with the new fees now, right?
Okay, so that's going to contain all of our fees for delivery, the tiered manufacturing, basically all of the fees. If you're a permit holder, the fee might tweak a little bit, but my hope is that no one has any heartburn or is upset in any way with what is going to be proposed. I think it's, again, my goal is trying to meet the industry where it's at and encourage compliance. So, for example, I think the distribution permit fee went from $47,000 to 20 something, right? So trying to make these things a little bit more pragmatic. We're scheduling business workshops. I'm going to be working with our 3 of our local chambers of commerce to facilitate kind of learning workshops of how folks can get a permit. Right now, we don't have any of those on the books, but my hope is that by in the next couple of weeks, we'll begin to get those on the books and get them probably hosted beginning in December. Probably more like a December, January, February kind of timeline. And it will cover all of the requirements for us here locally and all the requirements for the state as well. Am I forgetting anything? That's it. Yep. I think that's it. It's a little bit short of agenda. As I said, we went to Denver for the last couple of days, which is why we're don't have our awesome PowerPoint presentation here today. Colorado is interesting. They do a lot of things that I don't quite understand and hope to not repeat here. They also do some things that are, I think, done pretty well. So we're going to hopefully be borrowing all of those best practices and avoiding all of the mistakes that they make. But it is interesting. They're a few years ahead of us, but not 2 years ago they were a few years ahead of us. Now they are a couple months ahead of us in terms of like reality and rollout. For example, adult use, they've just begun to have the conversation really around on-site consumption. We're going to start having that conversation in January, and we might get to it before even they do. They don't have on-site consumption cafes. Their state law prohibits dispensaries from having on-site consumption, and so all of their proposal for on-site consumption is done through what they call a DCA, designated consumption area, which is maybe actually something that we might kind of steal here to a degree, kind of solves the proverbial yoga room problem. I've gotten like 5 calls from yoga rooms that want to smoke pot while they do yoga, which, you know, more power to you. Yoga is really hard enough. It should be maybe on a padded floor, right? So when you fall over, you're not going to hurt yourself. But yeah, they have designated consumption areas, and that's kind of, I thought, maybe a little bit interesting. There's maybe something that we can kind of borrow from there. But if the council permits adult use sales in November, which I'm not confident about, mostly because of the result of an audit that was done and published that's going to be heard on October 31st. So if you're not doing anything on Halloween and want to see me get poked with a sharp stick, come to city council. It just showed the city auditor's report revealed that we have a long ways to go in terms of developing a professional industry, top to bottom, really a full spectrum of professionalism throughout our dispensaries. And it shows that we have some regulatory gaps. And so they're having a little bit of I'd say a crisis of confidence. And so they may not permit adult use on November 28th. But provided that they do permit adult use, we'll probably begin to have the conversation around the other pieces of on-site consumption, including special events, and maybe those designated consumption areas and cafes beginning in January. But in order to do that, I need to make sure. Oh yeah. Don't even need my glasses for that. Tiered delivery. So I'm also going to be proposing a tiered delivery for delivery-only dispensaries in terms of gross receipts. So again, trying to figure out the best way to meet the industry and the market where it's at. A delivery-only dispensary would be broken at $500,000, so under or over. So if you're a true small delivery company and have gross receipts of less than $500,000, your permit would be slightly less than one with gross receipts of higher than $500,000. Again, that requires council approval. Certainly open to feedback on any of these tiered systems, but I'm trying to develop and find ways for lower barriers to entry that still maintain a high degree of quality and present opportunities for those folks that may not be entirely, backed by hedge funds and incredibly, have high limits of capital. So, with that, I'll take questions if anybody has any, and I don't see any hands. No, damn it.
Joe, I talked to you the other day about the registered grows that are still operating and waiting for permits. And are you possibly going to be giving out the emergency letters so that we can get permits with the state to be able to? Otherwise, we're kind of out of business. If we can't sell the dispensary, we need a state license.
Yeah, we're going to have to. We've made a commitment to you by asking you to register. But I need to do a little bit more work on that. But yeah, we're going to have to allow you to apply.
Hi, Joe.
Hey.
I was just hoping for clarification. You mentioned for adult use that storefronts and delivery businesses would have an opportunity to apply for adult use, but that storefronts would have to do it through delivery?
So all delivery has to occur through a dispensary, right? That's just state law. So if a current storefront dispensary wants to add delivery, they're going to be allowed to do that. The adult use would apply to existing dispensaries, and not the 30, but the dispensaries that were permitted to operate, right? So if you're a delivery-only dispensary and you have a permit and adult use becomes available, that permit will be available to you as well as any existing dispensary.
Great, thanks.
Oh, hi there, Joe. Quick question on, is there a path for like restaurant, commercial, kitchen to get a permit? Because I remember like a few stakeholder meeting we had a few weeks ago. You mentioned something about commercial kitchen. And
yeah, so manufacturing needs to be done in a manufacturing facility, and that's going to have to meet, if you're producing a food product, you're going to have to meet the same requirements as, you can't do it in your home.
Oh, okay.
But a commercial kitchen that produces a food product is per the Department of Public Health is not going to be permitted to do both things. So if you have a commercial kitchen that you intend to rent out of the back of a restaurant, it's not going to fly with the California Department of Public Health, as I understand it.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Joe, over here. Hi. So I just want to clarify the CUPs and BOPs that have been approved so far. Are any of those non-storefront dispensaries? Are you guys giving any CUPs and BOPs for non-storefront dispensaries now, or is that only for manufacturing?
Cultivation, manufacturing, testing. Okay. Delivery is going to be heard in November, and that would be the first non-storefront dispensary.
Thank you.
Hi, Joe. You mentioned that you're going to have a vendor workshop. Are you going to allow any businesses to also kind of exhibit at that vendor workshop?
Yeah, so my plan is to be a partner at these workshops. So I'm going to be looking with our chambers of commerce to help kind of put together a package of suites to really serve the totality of business needs. And so, my hope is that they would provide make available other information, certainly than just what I have. I mean, businesses needs more than just a permit from me. I mean, they need accounting, they need security, they need, fill in the blank.
And so are you going to produce, how are you going to communicate that's going to be available? And
We will certainly have it on our website, and if you're interested in maybe sharing some of that information, we can connect you with some of the chambers that we hope to work with.
Okay. And then I have a second question regarding volatile manufacturing. You've stated that it's just not going to be allowed in the city. We get that. We're a vendor that potentially could provide butane, and the city of Davis has said yes, but our facility is here in Sacramento. Are we going to be breaking the law if we choose to provide that to a known manufacturing facility in Davis? Because I know that according to the Assembly bill and stuff I've read from the county, it pretty much says that you can only sell 600 mils every 30 days unless it is a commercial business.
Yeah, are you not a commercial business? I mean,
unless you're selling to a commercial business.
Right, so that manufacturer would be a commercial business at this point, at that point, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there are some state regulations around. There has to be some sort of state permit or license that you hold to transport and store large amounts. Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, that's a non-issue.
Yeah.
It's just, we don't want to break the law in the city.
Yep, you're good.
Yeah.
Joe. Hi, my name's Graylin Wright with Loader Construction. Joe, could you speak to any communications you've had with the building department regarding the construction of these facilities and plan review?
You got to be a little bit more specific. Yeah. Yes, I've talked to them a lot, so I'm blue in the face sometimes.
What are they going to be looking for, or do they have they put out anything that you're aware of regarding these facilities?
Yeah, so have they posted it on their website, that thing, that document that Jeff was working on? Check our website in the next, give us like a week or so. But yeah, the building department just kind of provided a kind of a checklist, if you will, of like things that they're looking for. It's all very standard business or building requirements.
So there's no specific requirements for this industry that are proposed right now?
Yeah, it might already be on their website. Check the building department's website, but we'll try and get it thrown up on ours as well. Certainly adding the link is not very difficult.
Thank you.
Hi, Joe. I'm curious if you intend to apply the 300-foot buffer to residences for non-storefront deliveries.
I can't remember if that's in there. Ms. Patterson. It looks like no.
Hey, Joe. I just want to know where we're at as far as using one single CUP for different permits. So for manufacturing, cultivation, and delivery.
It's tomorrow.
That's on Law and Ledge for tomorrow, you said?
No, it's on council tomorrow.
Oh, perfect. Thanks.
Hey, Joe.
Yes, sir.
I want to ask if you're applying for a permit or application, have any veteran preference been considered?
Have any what?
Veterans preference been considered?
Not currently. Yes. Is it?
For the storefront versus the delivery only, it's going to require, it's going to have the same uses, some modifications to some of the radiuses. But if you don't meet them, you go to the commission instead of to the zoning administrator. So it's a higher level, but it'll not have from dispensary to dispensary, that footage is gone. So that won't be, but there's going to be like 600 feet between storefront dispensaries required instead of 1,000.
Yes, sir.
Are you gonna, is there gonna be a different?
It's okay.
All right. With the mic down, I'll talk a little quieter. In regards to being on the downtown grid, are there going to still be the same setback requirements in terms of square feet? Because you're pretty close to a lot of parks, you're right across the street from residential, on almost every corner of downtown.
Yeah, so what I think Joy was trying to articulate is those distance requirements are going to be changing. However, if you don't meet those distance requirements, you can apply to the Planning and Design Commission. The kind of hard and fast one is the 600 feet from a school.
Even on the downtown grid?
Yeah. Can't have it on site.
Hi there, Joe. I just want to clarify with the distance for a non-delivery only dispensary. There's only two distance that you need, right? The park and the school, right? I kind of got confused when she say distance between other stuff.
So, non-storefront dispensary
The
distance
proposal
requirements.
is that'll be going to commission in November to have the same requirements as a storefront dispensary. And if you can't meet the requirements, instead of prohibiting you from applying, you get to go to the Planning Commission instead of the zoning administrator. So there's still sensitive use, there'll still be sensitive use of footage requirements. One of the ones, though, a difference is that we're going to allow you to apply at the zoning administrator level for delivery-only dispensaries won't have to be a certain number of feet from each other. So, for example, you could have 3 delivery-only dispensaries in one warehouse building. Maybe that makes more sense.
And no 300 distance from residence.
If it's 300 feet from residential, you'd have to go to the commission instead of the zoning administrator for your hearing. You'd start out at the commission.
That was easy.
No more questions?
Going once. All right.
Oh,
Thank you.
We have a question. That was a test.
Sorry. On the distributions, like if you're going to open Costco, what are the setbacks going to be for a building like that?
I don't have those off the top of my head either. It's going to, for the distribution as a service, it's going to be the same thing.
It's like a cultivation.
600 feet from a school, 600 feet from a park, 300 feet from residential. Yeah, the distribution as a service, or distribution as a business.
November 2nd. So that means that the proposed ordinance and staff report will be available online. It's 2 weeks. It's November 2nd. So it's 2 weeks from this Thursday is the commission meeting. Or is that a week?
No, it's a week.
I'm so confused. It's a week.
So staff report will be open Thursday.
That's why I'm trying to write a report so fast. Right. Okay, so this Friday, the draft ordinance and the staff report will be posted online. So you can see, so perhaps it will be clearer then what the rules are proposed for storefront dispensaries and delivery-only dispensaries and what the differences are.
And if you want to lobby for different distance requirements, that would be the appropriate time.
Right. It's a public hearing before the commission, then it goes to law and legislation, and then it goes to council. So we may propose different sensitive use distance requirements, and we might be making them less restrictive. The commission or the council could make them more restrictive or say, no, we don't like them at all. Go back to the drawing board. So that's what you'll see this Friday. You can see what staff's recommendation is.
If the council approves in November the staff's proposal, yes.
Okay, thank you.
With the delivery-only dispensaries, how do the receipts have to be presented? Just so I'm knowing for like the tier system that you're speaking of.
So it's based on projected gross receipts?
Yes. How do the gross receipts have to be presented, like when they are? Oh, they're projected. Okay.
Yeah. They're easy.
There's a limit on the dispensaries in the city. Is there going to be a limit put on delivery services?
That's ultimately a council question. I don't know. I'm not recommending that there be a cap.
And they're going to be responsible for the 4% city tax also.
They're going to be responsible for the 4%, meeting all the requirements of the storefront, and probably a whole lot more. All right. One more. Oh, come on.
So in regards to the employees having to get live scanned in the industry, is that going to apply to delivery, testing, distribution, cultivation, as well as the dispensaries?
So there is on November 28th, there with along with adult use, November 28th is going to be a very long meeting, along with the proposal to allow adult use. Is also going to be a discussion around our background check and background check requirements. And so my hope is that it ultimately changes from what it currently is. And what it currently is a requirement that all employees go through a background check that and excludes folks that have been either charged or convicted of a felony. I believe that the council will amend that. That particular provision did not get a lot of discussion or debate when it was initially adopted, and I think it's overly punitive. So, but where they ultimately fall down or fall on the specific requirements of background checks for employees or not, I couldn't begin to kind of really forecast that. I think if there is, I think it'd be hard for me I would believe that delivery drivers would be included and kept included in that. Even if they excluded all employees, my guess is they would keep delivery drivers in that loop. but I couldn't begin to kind of really tell you. I think they're going to loosen it up from what it is currently, though.
So is there still a deadline set on that to when all employees in dispensaries have to be live scanned by? Because I know that the hours were kind of restricted and by appointment only, so it cut the time in half. So do they still currently need to be going through the process and all getting that done, or can we push pause on that? Or
I would get it done.
okay, thank you.
Everybody count to 20, and then somebody raise their hand.
Okay, so we have to live scan every employee. You're saying do it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So with employees that do maybe have a felony that's related to cultivation or growing or something like that, will there be a possibility that, that can be overlooked?
Yeah, so my hope with whatever the council adopts in terms of kind of exclusions to this, that they apply an appeal, right? So, if I had to make a recommendation this very second, I think, the automatic kickers should be, convictions of, a violent felony, right? And maybe some other crimes of moral turpitude. However, I think that they should have an appeal process, because I think it should be, we need to apply kind of like, the human element to all of that.
So is anything like that already in place? So if an employee was to not pass that, then would we automatically have to get rid of that employee? And if so, then are we going to have to pay them unemployment and things like that, or how?
Yeah,
is that
there
all
is an
gonna work?
appeal. There is an appeal in there currently. I'd have to go back and read it to quote the exact section, but it's somewhere in section 5.105, I think, somewhere around there.
So, Joe, is this something new about the employees for the live scan? I know for management it was required, but is all employees need to be live scanned? Or just management?
Yeah. Yeah, right now it's for cultivation, manufacturing, and testing. So I guess, Kimberly, to you, you could hold and see what the council does with the dispensary employees. But right now it applies to all.
Okay, so it's not at dispensaries?
Yeah.
Not at dispensaries, only management. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Joe. Question about the new potential requirements for laboratory testing and the removal of the CUP requirement, because it seems like the CUP for laboratory testing requirement is being removed, but certain of the requirements that were in the CUP but not previously in the code or in the business operations permit application are being transferred from the CUP to the city code, including the 600-foot perimeter requirement. I'm just curious about why that square footage is maintained, or that 600-foot perimeter is being maintained, if there's recognition by the city that the same kind of constraints for other cannabis businesses aren't necessarily applicable for labs.
Can you make that question a little bit longer? Yeah, I mean, why are we keeping the 600 feet from parks and schools? Yeah, it's just schools, right, for testing labs, Joy? 600, it's 600, what's the? For testing labs, right. Why are we? Mm-hmm.
Pretty good deal there. Sensitive use regulation
There, 6,400 square feet is kind of a magic number, not for cannabis, but for the C2 zone. Right. I.e., don't don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
Thank you, Joe. Enjoy.
When is the equity program going to come out?
So I don't know. I've got a meeting coming up with the mayor and the council. I also just had probably one of the best things that came out of my trip to Denver was actually the chance to have about an hour-and-a-half conversation with Kat Parker, who's my counterpart for the city of Los Angeles. And so we kind of swapped a lot of ideas on equity. And so I need to go back and make some amendments to that. But my hope is that something is going to go to council probably in November for them to consider of what to do. What are some potential options? Oh, I know there's a follow-up question to that one. No? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. That was easy peasy.
I have a house in LA.
Hey.
You guys doing that? She just asked that question about equity, and I didn't.